Let's imagine you're in Las Vegas and you have to make a bet on who's going to win a college basketball game. Now, you can pick between the more experienced defending champions, whose record you're very familiar with, or on the up-and-coming challengers, who have yet to be proven at a championship level. Which team would you place your bet on? If you're like most rational actors, you would probably hedge your bet and put your money on the defending champions who have a proven track record. The same scenario often proves true for politics as well. In a political campaign, the defending champion in an election is called the incumbent. Put another way, an incumbent is the political candidate that currently occupies the position that he or she is running for. For example, in the 2004 election, the incumbent candidate for president seeking re-election was George W. Bush. Incumbents generally have a major advantage over the opponent when seeking re-election. As a matter of fact, going all the way back to the 1960s, at least 80% of incumbents have been re-elected in every congressional election. So why do incumbents have such an advantage? The first reason is that incumbents have an advantage over the opponent because of the power that name recognition brings in the voting booth. Since voters are familiar with the candidate's name, they often associate that name with someone that they trust and with their perceptions of what that candidate represents. The second reason that incumbents are often re-elected is that they already have an organized campaign that has won in the past and are honed like well-oiled machines. As an example, Barack Obama, the incumbent presidential candidate in the 2012 election, was able to fire up his election campaign team and structure that had been so successful during the 2008 election campaign. With his practiced and highly successful team in place, he was able to encourage voter turnout for his re-election through a combination of volunteers on the ground and a well-designed web and social media platform. He was re-elected rather easily in 2012. The third reason incumbents have such an advantage over their competitors is because of their role as an elected official. As an example, congressmen and women are budgeted money in order to communicate with constituents via flyers, newsletters, and a personalized web page at the government's expense. This is called the franking privilege. Even though this material is supposed to be informative in nature, this media and the franking privilege that goes with it allows incumbent candidates a way to earn re-election by having the advantages of free media exposure. As an example, let's take a look at the case of New Jersey Governor Christie, which shows how incumbent candidates can use their office to their advantage. In the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, Christie's office launched an ad campaign with the theme, Stronger Than the Storm, #STTS, in order to restore tourism to the New Jersey shore. Christie's office rejected a cheaper bid from a marketing company and accepted a more expensive bid that used the governor as a major focal point of the ad campaign. Although the ads were to improve tourism on the New Jersey shore, Christie garnered the benefit of free publicity and television time in an election year. As a result, he handily won the campaign for re-election that year. The fourth and final reason incumbents have an advantage is because they have garnered a vast inventory of political connections and financial supporters. According to the Washington watchdog group, the Center for Responsive Politics, and their website, opensecrets.org, senatorial incumbent candidates were on average, able to raise approximately $15.5 million each for their campaigns, compared to just over $2 million raised by the challengers. And in the House, incumbent candidates raised on average around $1.9 million, while the challengers raised on average just over $441,000. This means that when it comes to fundraising, senatorial incumbents have a whopping 7-to-1 advantage over their competitors, and House incumbents have around a 5-to-1 advantage over their opponents as well. This fundraising disparity is invariably due to the intense and close political connections that incumbents develop over time as they deal with different interest groups, PACs, businesses, and wealthy donors. Most challengers do not have the benefits of this advantage when it comes to fundraising. This means that incumbents can bring in truckloads of money while challengers must pass the hat. There are certain times when it becomes a disadvantage to be the incumbent candidate. This is particularly the case when the economy goes bad. And voters sometimes simply become frustrated with the nation's leaders and decide that they're going to vote for the opposition no matter what. Sometimes questions arise as to the past performance of a particular incumbent candidate. And while past performance is generally not the main reason for an incumbent's removal, it can be when accompanied by scandal or questionable moral ethics on the part of the candidate. But even in these years of high turnover, incumbents still average at least 80% re-election rate in the House of Representatives and just over 70% in the Senate. So what have we learned? Well, we've learned that an incumbent is a person who already holds the office for which he or she is running. And incumbents generally hold an advantage over any of their challengers or potential challengers. And since the 1960s, at least 80% of incumbents have been re-elected in every single congressional election. Now, as to reasons why that's true, first is name recognition. Secondly is the fact that the incumbent has an already established and successful team working for him or her. Third, the incumbent has access to government funds for things like publications and messages home, also for the internet on the franking privilege. And fourth, incumbents carry tight-knit political connections and deep-pocketed financial supporters. But there are disadvantages. Sometimes when the economy is bad or people are unhappy with the direction of the country or there's a serious question as to an incumbent's performance or character, it can lead to the removal of the incumbent at the voting booth. Which brings us to the real question at hand. Will President Trump be able to rely on his incumbency advantages to win another term as president in 2020? This question will become even more important as we see the 2020 election cycle crank into motion over the coming months.